September 26, 2009, the British property developer named Michael Lee stood in the middle of the Dubai desert, staring at what was supposed to be his fortune. Around him stood half-finished towers, cranes abandoned mid-construction, and roads that led to nothing. He'd invested $4 million into a luxury development called The World, a set of artificial islands shaped like a map of the Earth, visible even from space. But what Michael didn't know was this settlement, like many others around it, would soon be completely underwater within the next 3 years. If you've been to Dubai in real life or on Instagram, you've seen the Burj Khalifa, the Palm Jumeirah, the gold vending ATMs, and the indoor ski resort in the desert. What you haven't seen is the fact that nearly 40% of Dubai's residential properties are empty. These are entire neighborhoods where the lights never turn on. But American cities are still trying to copy this model right now. This isn't something about rich people being wasteful, but an economic system that defies every rule we are taught about supply and demand, building what people actually need. Dubai has cracked the code that countries are studying, investors are chasing, and economists say shouldn't work. But it does work, just not for the reason you think. Because here's what no one knows. Dubai is actually broke. The city-state has been on the edge of bankruptcy 3 times in the last 15 years. In 2009, they nearly defaulted on $80 billion in debt. Their neighbor, Abu Dhabi, the actual wealthy emirate, had to bail them out. So why does Dubai keep building ghost neighborhoods? To answer that, we need to go back to 1968. British Foreign Secretary Michael Stewart walks into the House of Commons and announces Britain is withdrawing military forces from the Persian Gulf. For 150 years, the British had controlled the crucial states, 7 tiny fishing villages on the Arabian Peninsula, including a dusty port town called Dubai. These weren't countries, they were pearl-diving settlements that became British protectorate because they sat on the shipping route to India. When the British left, Dubai's ruler, Sheikh Rashid, faced a problem. Abu Dhabi had struck oil in 1958 and was getting scandalously rich. Saudi Arabia was already a petrostate. Even tiny Qatar had massive gas reserves. Dubai had found some oil in 1966, but not much. Estimates gave them maybe 20 years before it ran out. Sheikh Rashid knew something his neighbors didn't. The oil wouldn't last forever, but geography would. You see, Dubai sits at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Always has been. So in 1969, he made a bet that would define the next 50 years. He wanted to turn Dubai into what cities like Singapore and Hong Kong had become. A business hub, a trading port, a place where money could move freely while the rest of the Middle East remained closed. The strategy was simple: build infrastructure before you need it. Now to start things off, in 1979, Sheikh Rashid opened Jebel Ali port, at the time the largest man-made harbor in the world. Ships weren't exactly lining up to use it. It operated at a loss, for the first few years that is. But Rashid kept building. 1985, Emirates Airlines launches, with just 2 leased planes. Today it's one of the world's largest carriers. And in the 1990s, they built the Dubai World Trade Center, a 39-floor tower in the middle of an empty desert. The inner circle of real estate argued if people are even going to rent offices in the desert. The answer Rashid gave was simple: everyone, once he made it a tax-free zone. Here's a trick he implemented that made everything possible. You see, Dubai doesn't tax income, corporate profits, or even capital gains, nothing at all. So for businesses and wealthy individuals, Dubai became a legal way to avoid taxes. The deal Rashid offered was simple: you register a company there, get to keep more of your money. By the 2000s, oil made up less than 5% of Dubai's economy. The city had become what Rashid envisioned, a service economy built on trade, tourism, and finance. But then something strange started happening. In 2002, the UAE changed the law. Foreigners could now buy property in Dubai. Before this, only Emirati citizens could own land. Now, anyone with cash could buy. Within 2 years, real estate prices doubled. Dubai's rulers saw this and realized something crucial. They didn't need to wait for businesses to show up. They could create an economy based on expectation that businesses would show up. And they started announcing megaprojects like the Palm Jumeirah, artificial island in the shape of a palm tree, the World Islands, 300 artificial islands shaped like a world map, Burj Khalifa, soon to be the world's tallest building, and of course Dubai Marina, an entire waterfront city from scratch. following the model that if they announce at first a massive attention-grabbing mega project, sell properties before they're built, sometimes even before construction begins, and use that money to build the project, announce the next project before the first one is finished, and repeat. It's not really a real estate market, more like a speculation market. Investors weren't buying apartments to live in, they were buying to flip. Property became a financial instrument, like stocks. Between 2002 and 2008, over 1,500 projects were announced in Dubai. When the population was 1 million people, they announced housing for 5 million. No one cared because prices kept going up until they didn't. November 2009, Dubai announces it's delaying debt payments, 80 billion worth. What? Property prices dropped 50% in 6 months. Construction cranes freeze. Developers flee the country, literally, to avoid debtors' prison. The Wall Islands half sunk into the Gulf, eroding because they weren't maintained. Rakil Tower, planned to be taller than Burj Khalifa, cancelled at foundation level. Michael Lees, the British developer I mentioned at the start, lost everything, so did thousands of others. This should have been the end, but Dubai had one advantage. The debt wasn't on government's books, it was on the state-owned company's books. Legal technicality, but crucial. When Abu Dhabi bailed them out with $20 billion, they weren't saving Dubai's government, they were saving Dubai's image. And here's what happened next that no one expected. Dubai still kept building, using the exact same model. Because the model, you see, it wasn't broken, it was working exactly as designed. Let me explain. What I didn't understand until I looked at the money flows was that Dubai's economy isn't about occupancy rates, it's about construction activity and capital flows. When you build a skyscraper, you need steel imported from Jebel Ali port, labor, 3 million migrant workers in UAE, mostly as construction, and a bit of slavery is fine after all. Financing through Dubai's banks, management companies creating white-collar jobs, and legal services. Property registration generates fees. Every building project, even if it sits empty, generates economic activity for years. The buildings don't need tenants to be profitable for Dubai, they need buyers during construction. And here's the genius part, Dubai's lack of transparency makes it perfect for money laundering. I'm not saying it's intentional, but it's a feature, not a bug. Russian oligarchs, Chinese officials moving money out of China, African dictators, Pakistani elites, anyone who needs to park money outside their home country buys Dubai real estate. And yeah, does their job. You can buy a $2 million apartment through a shell company, then will live in it, and it's a safe asset outside of your home jurisdiction. A 2023 investigation found that $146 billion in illicit financial flows moved through Dubai's real estate between 2015 and 2020. The buildings being empty isn't a failure, it's proof that the system is working. So why should you care about empty towers in Dubai? Because American cities are watching and learning. Miami is seeing the same pattern. Luxury condos bought by foreign investors, never occupied. Manhattan has thousands of billionaire bunkers, apartments that stay empty. Hudson Yards in New York, $25 billion development, used Dubai's exact model. Pre-sale units built with that money, market to international buyers who want US assets. The pitch to cities is tempting. You don't need to wait for your population to grow. Build first and growth will follow. Tax breaks to developers and foreign investment programs, luxury development marketed overseas. It creates jobs, it looks impressive, politicians can cut ribbons in front of cranes, but it disconnects housing from actual housing need. Dubai can survive this because it's tiny, 3 million people, authoritarian government, they can bail out companies, and it's already built around attracting foreign capital. American cities can't. When you build housing for investors instead of residents, you get higher prices because you're competing with global capital, not local incomes. Empty neighborhoods because owners don't live there, and fragile economies because you're dependent on foreign capital flows. Dubai proved that you can build an economy on speculation and construction. It didn't prove it's sustainable though, just that you can keep it going if you're willing to accept that buildings are for balance sheets, not for people. So the next time you see another Dubai megaproject announcement, and trust me, you will, don't ask who's gonna live there, that's not the point. Ask who's gonna buy it and what are they really buying, and how many slaves they're cost to build that. Because in Dubai's model, real estate isn't shelter, it's infrastructure for moving money, and that model is spreading fast. Thank you for watching.